Can I just welcome you to this event tonight as part of the Medical Research Council Festival. I'm James Walters. I'm a psychiatrist and researcher in this building, the Hayden Ellis building in Cardiff University. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all tonight. Thanks for coming out. I just want to give an overview first of all of why we're here. So the Medical Research Council is the UK government funder of research, and certainly within mental health research in Cardiff, we've benefited from their support for a number of years now. We're one of only two Medical Research Council centres for mental health research, and it's been of great benefit to our department for a number of years. And there's world-leading research going on here. So it spans the lifespan from Professor Anita Thapper's group in child and adolescent mental health through the Psychosis and mood disorders group, as well as rare genetic syndromes, right the way through to really cutting-edge research on Alzheimer's and other dementias. And as I say, a large part of that is thanks to the support from the Medical Research Council over the last 20 or so years. From a personal point of view, the Medical Research Council have funded my PhD. They funded several grants since then, and actually funded me whilst as a medical student. So I went, as a medical student you get time abroad, and I went on my student elective to South Africa, funded by the Medical Research Council, who had a centre there. We worked for a while in Soweto, in Johannesburg, which was an incredible experience. And then we went to a German nuns missionary hospital in KwaZulu, what was Zululand, and it was really, at that time, third world Africa. There were very few health services there. The German nuns brewed their own beer, which was a bonus, given we were there for 3 months. But what I saw there, which inspired me to get involved in mental health, and particularly mental health research, was the fact that every morning the staff there would bring out 3 or 4 middle-aged guys who probably looked double their age, who had chronic schizophrenia that had never been treated. And these guys were in what's called a catatonic state. So they were in a fixed state and didn't interact. And thankfully, that's now incredibly rare. But in that circumstance, and in past times, in all societies, that was quite a common occurrence. The reason that has happened, I think, is because of advances within mental health treatment, and that treatment as broadly as it can be, both medication but also equally as importantly social and psychological treatment advances. They've all been thanks to 2 factors, I think. One has been advances in public knowledge and attitude towards mental ill health and research. And I think without those 2 things, we really struggle. We know that mental health is underfunded, mental health care is underfunded, as well as mental health research being really chronically underfunded. And it's a problem that we must confront, I think. There's a charity, MQ, that has developed and is the only really viable charity to support mental health research, and they've done some research in this area. And what they showed that the government spends 22 times as much on cancer for every person affected than it does on mental health. 15 times as much on dementia, 5 times as much on cardiovascular disease for every person that's affected as it does on mental health. They also showed that for every pound the government puts in, then for cancer, people contribute, the public contribute another £3. For cardiovascular disease, as well as that government pound, the public contribute another £1.35. For mental health, they contribute half a pence. Okay? For those of you born after 1984, there used to be a half-p coin, and the government got rid of it because it was bloody useless. Okay? That's how much the public are contributing to mental health research in recent years. And I think that's why we need powerful advocates to make the case. And I think the most powerful advocates and most eloquent people to talk to that are people with experience of having mental health issues and people involved with those people. And that's why it's a great pleasure tonight to welcome Jonny and Neil, who I think have been amongst the most articulate advocates and are making a real difference in the momentum behind change in that picture in mental health research in recent years. at which point I'd really like to hand over, and I'd really look forward, as I'm sure everyone else does, to hearing more about your story this evening. After that, there's going to be a chance for everyone to ask questions. We'll then have a quick break and come back and talk about what you as an audience are interested in and should feel should be the priorities for mental health research, and for us to talk about some of the research that is going on and then answer any wider questions you may have. So thanks very much, and over to Jonny and Neil.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Some great examples there to kick off, like why we're here. We're going to talk about our personal story, which we go around a lot and talk to people. And I'm Neil Laybourn of the two, and this is Jonny Benjamin. Just before we do that, I'm just interested. Does anybody in the room know of our story or seen the documentary? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, cool. So what we're going to speak about is actually a kind of maybe a different spin on that. So if you have seen the documentary, there'll be a lot covered that you won't have seen and get an insight. I was actually just brushing up a little bit just to make sure I remembered the stats. And just one important one to do, which about spending, is that we're going to talk a little bit around schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and also suicide, which is part of our journey. For every £1 spent by the government on prevention, saves £18 on treatment with schizophrenia. A couple more stats just to get them out of the way. 300 million people right now globally are diagnosed with depression. So actually, mental health is the leading health concern across the globe. And the World Health Organization knows that if we don't tackle this, it's going to be the biggest epidemic we've ever dealt with in the next 10 years. And just to bring it home in the UK, stigma is a real big problem. And 1 in 4 people at any one time have experienced a mental health problem. And of those people, 90% say they've experienced discrimination, which stops people talking about it and looking at all sorts of therapy. So that's just kind of why we're here. And as we talk through our story, you'll get an idea about why we're passionate about just helping that stigma and promoting this message of hope and recovery in mental health. I'm going to hand over to Jonny because the story starts with Jonny, so he's going to take it from here. Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the very beginning of my story, and my story starts here. I was born on the 31st of January 1987 in North London, and sort of really, typical childhood. Grew up with mum, dad, older brother. Yeah, all sort of just very standard. But when I was around the age of 3-4 years old, that's when I started to actually see things and hear things that weren't there. And so basically, in the 80s, there was this a cartoon version of the BFG. I don't know if anyone remembers it, saw it in the 80s, a cartoon film of the BFG. So I saw that film when I was around this age, and I started to see what I thought was a BFG, and I started to hear things that weren't there. And my behaviour changed. I became a lot more withdrawn. I became quite violent as well. And my parents just didn't understand what was going on, why I was suddenly changing, really. They took me to the doctors a few times, and eventually I was referred on to a child psychologist. This is actually the letter to the child psychologist. And I remember working with her for a bit. I don't really remember much of our sessions. I was really young. I don't really remember much of what went on in the sessions. Meanwhile, I was in primary school, and in primary school, I was doing really well academically. I was really hardworking and really excelled in the classroom. But outside of the classroom, I struggled to be around people. I spent a lot of time by myself. But that was never really picked up on because I was doing so well in my schoolwork. And this continued into secondary school. This is me when I started secondary school. I went to a big Jewish. I'm Jewish. I went to a big Jewish secondary school in North London, and again, same thing. Really hardworking, really excelled in the classroom, but again, outside of the classroom, I felt so different to everyone else at school. It was around this time that I started to hear a voice in my head. I thought everyone heard a voice in their heads. Why would it just be me? Everyone must be hearing a voice in their head. So I was hearing what I thought was the voice of an angel. And I link this now to, personally I link it to, I lost my grandmother before I started hearing this voice. And I was close to her, and I really struggled with the grief. And then I started to hear this voice, and I don't know, I think there's a link personally. So I was hearing what I thought was the voice of an angel, and I thought, because I was really influenced by my faith growing up. I went to Sunday school, I went to this Jewish secondary school. I thought, this is good. I'm a good Jew. I thought, I'm hearing the voice of this angel. So I liked it being there at first. It would change a few years later on, but at first I liked it being there. Around this time as well, I went to the cinema and I saw the film The Truman Show. Is everyone familiar with the film The Truman Show with Jim Carrey? So I went to the cinema with, I had one friend at that time, and I went to the cinema with him, and came out of the cinema, and he said to me, you never know, but you might be on The Truman Show, there could be cameras watching you, I might be an actor. This really played on my mind until, I began to believe, I know where all the cameras are that are watching me. People in my life are actors, they're all actors, and I'm on this TV show. I misread so many signs. I used to misread things, for example, I'd be maybe thinking of someone, and I'd see them in the school corridor. I'd be like, they're in my head, or I'd be thinking of a song, and it would come on the radio. A number of times that happened, and I was like, they're in my head, and it's all just like the voice. I thought, well, this is my life, and I need to get on with it. I kind of liked being on the Truman Show at this age, because I thought it meant that people would like me and respect me. Because I wasn't myself at school. At school, I was very shy. I wasn't myself. But when I was at home, I was different. I was more. I was less introverted. I was more myself. So people would see that on the TV show with the cameras, I thought. So I quite liked it at first. But again, this was to change. It was in my mid-teens when things changed. This is me with my brother one Christmas. And you can't really see here, but I started to get really bad acne. And we tried different creams, and eventually they put me on this drug called Roctane. I'm sure some of you have heard of Roctane. So Roctane has been linked to depression and, unfortunately, a number of suicides in young people. And for me, the drug, it cleared my skin up within like 6 months. My skin was clear. But I don't know, I had these really low moods. I didn't understand what was going on. We didn't have any mental health education at school whatsoever. The only thing that we got was they showed us the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest when we were 17. That was our mental health education. And that film scared me, it put me off talking. So I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand why I felt so low. I was doing well in my GCSEs, I was doing well, and good family, and it just didn't make sense why I felt so low so much of the time. And it was around this time as well that the voice in my head changed. So it went from being what I thought was this angel to what I thought was the devil. And I link this now to, so I was struggling with my sexuality. And again, I was really influenced by my faith, and going to a Jewish school, and coming from a Jewish background, I was told, being gay is wrong, being gay is a sin. And that had a massive impact on me. I felt very, very guilty and sinful. And so then this voice came on and began to torment me and challenged me to do things. I'd always have to do things in threes. Small things, I'd have to pick up something, put it down 3 times, I'd have to move 3 spaces, things like that. But the voice said, if you don't do this, then I'm going to punish you. And so I felt I had to do all these things, because I believed, this is the devil, and I have to do these things, otherwise I'll be punished. So it made life quite difficult. But I wasn't going to tell anyone, because, as I said, I was doing so well in my GCSEs, and then my A-levels. I didn't want people to see that side of me that was struggling, so I didn't tell anyone. When I was 17, though, I did go to my GP, and my GP was really good, actually. I have to say, my GP was really good. He referred me on to CAMS, to the child and adolescent mental health service. So I saw CAMS for one appointment. This is my letter from CAMS after my first appointment. But this time I was not in a good place, and it says here that I tried to hang myself in the school toilet. Suicidal thoughts were really at the forefront of my mind now. It was really hard to live with the demands of the voice and the depression. Unfortunately, there was a long waiting list for therapy. I waited months and months, and I gave up waiting. I said to myself, I've got to do this on my own. And I came up with a plan. My plan was I was going to leave London, leave my family home, and I was going to go off to university, to Manchester. And I thought, that would solve everything, and I could leave everything behind in London. I was going to start afresh. I was going to turn over a new leaf. It was all going to change when I went to university. And these are my housemates at university in Manchester, and of course everything came with me. But again, everyone seemed so happy. I felt I couldn't show what was really going on, say what was really going on. And people kept saying to me, these are the best years of your life. And so I couldn't, I had to bury it, I had to push it down. But really, internally I was starting to spiral out of control, and started to self-harm, started to use alcohol as a way of escape. Sometimes it was the only way to escape. And I was just kind of withdrawing more and more and more, trying to cover it up as best I could. But then in the third year of my degree, in the first term of my third year, it all spilled out, and I became psychotic. So it was November 2007, and it was just a minor car accident. I had a minor car accident. Someone reversed into me. I don't know, but somehow it triggered something in me, and I lost control over over everything. So I felt like I was being possessed by the devil, and I went onto the streets of Manchester screaming, shouting. Went into the middle of this dual carriageway. It was a really horrible experience. It felt like I wasn't in control over anything, and it wasn't my words that were coming out. So I was taken to A&E. I was taken to local A&E in Manchester, and they said they couldn't do anything. They didn't have any beds, so they sent me home with some Valium to my housemates that you saw earlier, and I couldn't hide it anymore. It was too far gone. I couldn't hide it anymore, and they were shocked by what they saw. It was a different person, and they couldn't look after me. They sent me home to my parents, and my parents, again, it was too far gone, and my parents took me straight away to the GP, and the GP referred me straight away to a psychiatric hospital in North London, and I was taken there, and I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. So I thought, well, there must be some sort of depression. I didn't know about. I knew a bit about depression, so I thought it must be some sort of depression. But when the psychiatrist said the word schizophrenia, that was it for me, really. Because all I'd read growing up or seen about schizophrenia was wholly negative. So that was it. I said to myself, well, you're not going to get better. What's the point, really? I was admitted into the psychiatric hospital, and I stayed there for a month, and it was really hopeless. Everyone around me was really unwell. Everyone just was really unwell. No one was getting any better. And at the end of that month, I was done. At the end of that month, I said, I can't do this anymore. It wasn't just about me. It was my family as well, coming to see me every day, and I just couldn't bear it. There was just no hope. And so I ran away from the hospital on the 14th of January 2008, just before my 21st birthday. And that was it. That was going to be it. I was going to throw myself off the bridge, and it was going to be the best thing for everyone. So I went to the bridge in London and stepped onto the edge of it, and I don't know how long I was on there for, but then this stranger approached me and started talking to me, and that's where I hand over to Neil.
So for me, my part in this, our story is when I was 24 years old. So 9 years ago. I don't have any cute baby pictures today. Sorry, guys. Just me in the gym. That's right. One of the only photos I've got back then. But no, back then I was just finished a personal training diploma when I was 24. I grew up in a town called Watford in Hertfordshire, and hadn't gone into London at all growing up really, but got this new qualification and was looking to get a new job in central London, and so that's what I did. In November 2007, I started working in Covent Garden, and I moved in with some guys that I met on the course. I had new flatmates, brand new job, went to work, started there, had Christmas break, came back in January 2008, and my commute to work was here. So this is Waterloo Bridge in central London, and as you go into the end of it, you've got like Piccadilly Circus, Covent Garden, and all that jazz. I would come in over here on the right hand side, just past the green building there, Waterloo Terminal. And on that particular morning that Jonny was talking about, on the 14th of January 2008, it was a Monday morning, it was about 10 o'clock, and with the rest of the rush hour commute, I came out onto the bridge, and it was really, really horrible day. I remember it really clearly. Freezing cold and grey skies, and just that little bit of British drizzle that makes it so wonderful to live in this country. It was one of those days, and everybody, including me, had big winter coats on, glove, scarf, hat, middle of winter, walking over, but somebody just stuck out like a sore thumb. You know, it was this guy right here. He was sitting on the side of the bridge. There's some railings, and he was sitting on top of the railings, just wearing a jeans and t-shirt in the middle of winter, and just shivering, freezing, just looking out to the water, just completely in his own world. You couldn't not really take that in. Yeah, like I said, every hour in the middle of London seems like rush hour, but everybody's walking past, and of course looking, and you know, this guy sitting shivering on the bridge, looking back at each other, but not actually, just walking on by. And it was the first time that I'd seen something like that, and I didn't know if I would walk by, but something just kind of clicked, and I just felt compelled to pull in and just find out, first of all, why he was sitting on the side of the bridge. So I kind of walked up and tried not to scare him, and just said, "Hello mate, why are you sitting on a bridge?" But that was the start of a conversation that was going to have a big impact on both of us. But right then and there, he told me, "I want to kill myself," and yeah, he was adamant that that's why he was there. So found myself very quickly in a situation where I had absolutely no idea what to say and what to do. I thought if anything I said could be the wrong thing or the right thing. Like Jonny said, growing up, no talking about mental health at school, being a bloke as well, you know, you just push everything down and don't address it, especially something like suicide, like what somebody could be going through, no idea, but you can't just, you know, walk away from a situation like that. He didn't want me there. He said, you know, just go away, I just want to do this today. I couldn't get my phone out, he wouldn't let me call the police or call anybody over to help. So all I could do was really sit there and just try anything to resolve the situation while in my head is going a million miles a minute. And so just asking questions and questions and questions. And he started to open up and tell me some of the things he was telling you. You know, told me he'd run away from hospital, and his family didn't know where he were, and he was just living in so much pain and misery and just wanted to end it all. But after about 20 minutes or so, you know, we were still in that situation, just me and him sitting on the bridge, and yeah, not really getting anywhere. And just one last ditch effort was to say, look, if we just go up to the top of the bridge there, there's a coffee shop. I don't know, you know, how much time you need, but whatever, let's just sit down, let's just look at today at least, and then take it from there. And I thought maybe I could get him to call the police or something. That was the thing that changed the conversation. actually. It changed the whole conversation, and he just engaged with me and said, okay, stepped down from the bridge, and we were standing side by side on the pavement, pretty much like we are now. And I was actually really, really looking forward to going for that coffee. Completely forgot about my day. And I hope Jonny was to some degree as well. And we were about to go and have that coffee, but a police car, somebody had called the police, they'd seen the interaction. A police car came just like screeching up beside us, and it really shocked me, and it really, really shocked Jonny, and he ran back for the bridge. I was able to grab him for a few seconds. The police came out and certainly, took control of the situation, but handcuffed him straight away, head down in the back of the police car, and just left him there while the two of them took a statement from me on the side of the bridge. And that was, but I thought they were the professionals and they knew what they were doing, so that's kind of what you did. So they took a statement which lasted all of about 5 minutes. I told them pretty much what I told you guys now, no more, no less. And they said, thank you, please go on about your day. I did. I went to work, went one way, and they took Jonny the other way. And I thought, oh God, I hope he's going to be okay. But for me, at least, I don't have to do the wrong thing anymore. I thought that was it, but actually, by complete surprise to me, 6 years later on, we were gonna be reunited again.
So for me, there was a few things that Neil did that changed things. It was him stopping and talking and listening. Actually, in the hospital, I'd said a few times, I feel suicidal and need to hurt myself, and they would say to me, well, got to send you back to the suicide ward, which is just like a one-to-one watch, 24/7, and we need to keep upping your meds. We just got to keep upping your meds, and it was just a constant cycle. And I'd never had a chance for someone to talk and listen. Neil listened in a way that was a lot of empathy and patience and compassion. So that was really powerful for me. But there were two key things that Neil said that changed things really that day. The first thing he said to me was, he said, don't be embarrassed, nothing to be embarrassed about. And that was really powerful for me to hear, because that was the main reason I was there, was because I was so embarrassed about all the things in my head and about my diagnosis and about my sexuality as well. So for someone to say to me, it's fine, whatever's going on, nothing to be ashamed about, that made me talk, that helped me to talk. The second thing, the real key thing that Neil said, it's very simple really, but he said to me, he said very sincerely, he said, I think you'll get better. And that was what I needed to hear. When you're in that place, you don't believe it in yourself, that's why you're there again. You don't believe it. So you need someone else to put their faith in you. And he did. I believe he really meant it. He thought I could overcome it. So that's why I stepped off the edge and onto the pavement. And as you heard, the police came along and I was taken away and I was sectioned. I was given a section 2, which was it was a difficult day, but once it was over, I was taken back to the hospital that I ran away from, and there was still the same stuff in my head, but I felt a bit different. I had some hope. I think that's what it was. I had some hope. Just from talking to Neil for that short amount of time on the bridge, I had some hope. And that hope carried me through the next few weeks and months and years, really. It does get better. It was a difficult few years. I eventually was discharged and I came out of hospital, and I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't have any mental health issues. I wanted everyone to leave me alone. I wanted to be like my friends. My friends were graduating, getting jobs and moving forwards from university, and I just felt really stuck. And so I came off my meds all in one go. I didn't know the impact it would have. I came off my meds and I became unwell again. I became delusional. This time I believed I was the Messiah. I was the Messiah and I was going to save the world, and had all these visions of how I was going to save the world. And I wrote to all these people, letter after letter I wrote to high-profile people. This one's to Paul McCartney. I didn't hear back. I was, lost in my own head for quite a while. Then I went through a phase of believing I was like a reincarnation of the singer Nina Simone. I believed I was going to be the next big jazz singer. I can't even sing. I made all these record demos and sent them off to record labels. It's just so hard for people to get through to me. I was just lost in my own head for a long time. And it was in my mid-20s when something changed. Basically, a family friend of ours had a heart attack, major heart attack. And I went to see him afterwards, and we sat down and we spoke for ages. He talked to me, I listened. He talked about everything that he'd gone through. He talked about the first pains that he got in his arm, to going into hospital and the bypass and what it was like now. And I sat there listening, and I was like, looking at him, thinking, why can you be so open? He's sitting there, not embarrassed one bit, completely frank and open and honest, talking about his health, his physical health. I said to myself, why can't I do this about my mental health, about what's happened to me? I went home that night and I said to myself, this has got to change. I've got to start talking. And so I did. I couldn't do it with someone. I couldn't look someone in the eyes and do it. It was too much. So I got my video camera out and all this stuff just came out on video. And I guess there's a link to the Truman Show because I thought I was used to being on camera. But I put this on YouTube under a different name. I didn't want my family to find out, so it was under a different name back then. I just wanted to connect to someone, just wanted one person to say, I get this. And it was amazing. People messaged me saying, I hear a voice in my head, or I've had the Truman delusion. They actually call it now. The Truman Show delusion is called the Truman delusion. People saying that, and people saying I've been depressed, I've been suicidal. It was such a relief to hear from other people and to know that I wasn't alone. And so I started making more and more videos. I found they were helping me, they were helping other people, I thought. So I started making more and more videos, and it developed my confidence to talk. And I started to tell people, I've got mental health issues and I'm gay. And I remember I could literally feel the weight coming off my shoulders when I just said, there wasn't anything to hide anymore. It was a real change for me. And so I started to, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference now. I was starting to get back on track. So I wanted to make a difference. And I started to get involved with different mental health charities and organisations. And I also published a book of poems around this time. All these poems I wrote when I was in hospital. I didn't talk when I was in hospital. Again, I know I keep using this word, but because I was too embarrassed, I didn't talk. I just used to write. And they really encouraged me to write. I used to write poem after poem and put them all together and publish them. And it's really strange reading this book now. It feels like someone else wrote it. I'm in a different place now, so it's very strange reading it back. But I got involved with one particular charity called Rethink Mental Illness. Some of you might have heard of Rethink. And they were the ones that said to me, have you ever thought of trying to find that guy on the bridge that stopped you? And, of course, he'd been there and his words were had such an impact. Of course, I thought about it, but how was I ever going to find him? I didn't remember his name or what he looked like. It was hazy memory. But they said, let's launch a campaign to find him. Let's try and find him through social media. And we did it to raise awareness, really, of mental health and also suicide as well. Suicide it's now the biggest killer of men in this country under the age of 45. In young people, it's the biggest killer of both men and women under 35 in this country, suicide. So we wanted to get people to talk about it. So we launched this campaign 6 years to the day that we first met on Breakfast TV. I was really nervous. I wasn't sure how people would respond to it, but the response was really overwhelming. It just started, it started trending in different countries, in Canada and South Africa. It was really surreal. But the most extraordinary thing was we actually had 38 people come forwards to say, I think it was me, that helped you on the bridge. And we just couldn't believe it because we just thought that one person would come forwards. But we spoke to all 38, and the thing is, most of these people were genuine, which is incredible. If you've been to London, it's such a busy place. Everyone's in their own worlds, and actually, there's all these people that are looking out for one another. And I guess we have seen that in the last sort of the horrendous things that have happened in this country in the past month or two. The acts of kindness and people helping one another. So it's really heartwarming. But none of these people were the person that we were looking for. They all had different accounts of the day, of the time and place of the bridge. So 1 week went into 2, and we thought that would be it. We wouldn't be able to find him. And then.
So I guess me being here is kind of a spoiler, but probably a few important points to touch on. Yeah, so for me, what happened next? I went to work, like the policeman told me to do, and in that short walk to work, I just tried to analyse that kind of 25-30 minute conversation I just had, that stranger about suicide, and I couldn't really make sense of it. So when I got to work, I didn't tell anybody what happened. Like I said, new job and new kind of, people, environment, didn't really connect yet with anybody. So yeah, just didn't talk about it. I did what I was used to doing for 24 years of my life, and just pushing it down, thinking I don't need to talk about that. I did speak to a handful of people, like it would have been my mum or my dad if I visited them. But one person I did speak to about it, when I got home later that day, I called my girlfriend at the time, who I'm now married to, and she was brilliant. This is us around that time on holiday, and Sarah, her name is, she was fantastic. So we sat down and talked about that conversation. She was the only person I actually felt comfortable to talk to about it. Again, I didn't want to, kind of appear like I didn't know what was going on in my own head, really. So, and we did, and she helped me to kind of put it all in perspective, because I was thinking things like, well, was he okay, and did it actually make a difference? Did he ever just go back and take his life? Was that conversation wasted, or he was so desperate to find peace? I know he was in so much pain. He was telling me he really didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be, on this earth anymore. And I thought I'd just stop that, and I just stopped somebody finding peace, and I just kept them in this kind of place where they didn't want to be, and that was my fault. So I had a few of those conflicting emotions, but a lot of time had gone by, and we talked about it over the days, weeks, and months. But then it turned into years, and the kind of flashback I would have would be on a winter's day, because I was still walking over Waterloo Bridge. Even 6 years later, I was still going to work in Covent Garden, and if it was a cold kind of winter day like that, I would just always think like, oh, what happened to that guy? But a lot was changed for me, really, as well. I was running my own business, and I was planning my wedding that year as well. I had lots going on, so yeah, everything that happened years ago was kind of a distant memory. The funny thing was, I don't think Jonny mentioned, so when he launched the campaign to find me, he thought my name was Mike, so not Neil, so he called the campaign Find Mike. And people around the world were looking for Mike. So and anyway, at that time when the campaign was out, I'd missed absolutely everything. Jonny had been on national TV and newspaper, and he'd been standing on Waterloo Bridge handing out flyers looking for me. And I'd missed absolutely everything. The funny thing was, you see down at the bottom here, there's this is me with a fraction of the guys that I would come to my boot camps. For years I was running boot camps, and I'd met literally thousands personally of local Londoners who would have seen that Find Mike campaign, would have seen Jonny on the bridge, but because I never spoke to anybody about it, nobody could connect the dots. The only person was Sarah, really. So I got a phone call really late at night. Sarah was frantic on the phone, and she was saying, that guy that you spoke to all those years on the bridge, he's looking for you. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? When I finally got what she was talking about, I was just speechless. When she got home, she showed me this. So this was the link that had been shared, I don't know through how many different people, that had found it onto her Facebook feed by her friend. So she clicked the link, she read the article. Obviously she didn't know Jonny's face, but you know, when she read it, because we talked about it so many times, she just knew that I was Mike. So yeah, when I saw that, it just all came rushing back, all the memories, the conversation. And I had to contact the charity that Jonny was working with, Rethink Mental Illness, to say like, "I'm Mike, it's me." So I did, and I sat down and took ages to write this email because I just was convinced that they just weren't going to believe me at all. So I wrote it and deleted it and rewrote it again. And after doing that, literally about 2 or 3 times, I just had to just press click send and just hope for the best, really. And sat up all night just talking, really. I didn't sleep much. I was just glad that, one, I knew he was okay, and that conversation had made a difference. And I was watching his YouTube videos, like I googled his name and saw these amazing videos he's done, and reading people's comments on YouTube and Twitter, and watching the Find Mike campaign for the first time on TV. So yeah, I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. It was amazing. And in the end, we were reunited, we were brought together, and the first time we met was actually genuinely on video above a pub in a place called Vauxhall in London. So that clip is part of our documentary, and we're just going to play that for you now.
When he walked through the door, I was just a bag of nerves. I've never been so scared in my whole life. Oh, yeah. Yes. I didn't instantly recognise him, but there was something there. There was something that was familiar about him as he approached me.
I saw you on TV. Yeah, I saw you speaking on TV. Don't be nervous, honestly.
And then it was when we sat down, we began talking. There was a moment that everything just came back to me. I could see him there on that bridge, and there he was now in front of me, and it was just overwhelming. It's just unbelievable, because, oh my gosh, like, you know, you it? Yeah, now I've seen you, like, it's all coming back. You standing beside me, and
he definitely said, "It's all coming back now, and I can remember your mannerisms, and I can remember your voice, and, you know, I can see you."
You can tell that he understands, and he doesn't judge, and just sits there with this kind of this big smile, and I think everyone could do with a friend like Neil. It's hard to put into words what it was like to be reunited. It's very emotional, and very emotional, very, very overwhelming. And then what happened next together was also pretty overwhelming. But the best thing about the whole campaign, all of it, was we had a number of messages such as this, which says, "Thanks for the various steps you've taken over the past few weeks to highlight mental health issues. Watching your story unfold stopped me from taking my own life. So a big thank you, mate." This is why we need more stories of hope and recovery from mental health. I mean, there's just not enough out there. After that, I actually had my own relapse. I became unwell again. The Find Mike campaign, the whole thing was such a high, and I came crashing down, and once again I didn't address it. I ignored it. I thought it would go away, and I became unwell again, and I ended up back in hospital about 9 months later. This time I decided I was going to document my journey through the relapse, through my videos. I called them my recover logs. I wanted to show people, you can recover. It took some time, and I realised then, I've got to do things differently. I've got to start looking after my mental health. I went back on my medication, and I know medication isn't for everyone, but I still take my medication. I started therapy properly. I'd always been like, I don't need therapy, don't want therapy. Started going into therapy, and I'm still in therapy. And the other thing around this time that I introduced was mindfulness. I'm sure everyone's heard of mindfulness. And for me, mindfulness doesn't turn off this, but it can be so intense and chaotic and overwhelming that mindfulness just reduces that. So if I'm doing something like meditation or yoga, if I'm doing a bit like an hour of yoga, I can't be up here because I'm in my body. I'm doing my stretches. I'm in my body. I can't be up here. I've got to be in my body. And I just do an hour of that, and I come out and I'm more grounded. I'm more aware, and it makes such a difference. And mindfulness for me has come with different concepts that I've learnt about. So self-forgiveness is one. Self-compassion and self-acceptance are really difficult concepts, but for me at the moment I'm having something called CFT, which is a compassion focused therapy, which is really, I think it's making a difference, all about developing self-compassion. I think we're so hard on ourselves, particularly if we go through something like mental health and mental illness. We're so hard on ourselves, but I know now, I try and think of it differently. I try and think of it like a friend of mine has diabetes, and she always will have to manage her diabetes. She always she goes through highs, she goes through lows, but when she needs help, she'll ask for help. So I'm trying to think of my mental health as similar to that. But I know I've got to look after it, and I try. It's hard, but I try. My last relapse was in February of this year, and I had an episode with Neil. In the middle of London, which isn't great, in Covent Garden, and I just became psychotic again and believed I was back on the Truman Show. It was very, it's scary. It scares me, how the mind can just completely take over, and no matter how much Neil was trying to tell me, and trying to help me, I just couldn't. I don't need to tell you, the mind is so powerful. But, I talk about it now. That's the big difference. I talk about it now, and that makes all the difference. And in 2015, our documentary that Neil mentioned before, Stranger on the Bridge, went out. And, that's led to kind of where we are today, which is going into places like schools and prisons and hospitals and all these sorts of places to try and break down the stigma, to try and get people talking. We've also travelled around the world, and last year I went to India to do some mental health work out there. We've got a lot of work to do here, but we've got even more work to do in countries like India. This is one of the psychiatric hospitals that I visited near Mumbai, and it speaks for itself really. It's once you go in there, you don't come out. They don't believe in recovery. I'll never forget. I was talking to a 19-year-old young lady in here. She had an episode of psychosis, and but she was doing better. She was doing much better, but she'll never leave the hospital because they don't believe in recovery. They said it's too risky for her to leave, and I was trying to talk to them, but there's so much education that's needed. On a more positive note, I was there to work with young people, and all of these young people have HIV, and it's amazing. They live together in this massive commune. None of them have families. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. But they've all got HIV, and because of that, their physical health was being addressed, but their mental health had never been addressed. So we were looking at sort of developing preventative tools. And prevention is something that, we don't focus on enough at all. And so our big thing is about getting into schools, both around the world and here as well. And last year we launched a mental health workshop that's going into schools around the UK called Think Well, which is going into secondary schools at the moment, and we want it to go into primary schools as well, because it needs to start in primary. But we want to get mental health embedded into the curriculum. That's our ideal scenario, where we talk about it constantly. So in history, we learn about people that had mental health issues. Winston Churchill, for example, very open actually about his mental health. Why don't we talk about that? Or in science, why don't we learn about the brain, things like chemical imbalance, Or in English, a lot of pupils do Romeo and Juliet. And at the end of that play, both of them take their own lives. We don't talk about it. We just shut the book, move on, do an essay. It needs to change. So that's our big aim.
So more recently, we got a phone call from Kensington Palace. The royal family are doing so much work to break down the stigma of mental health. For their own reasons. William and Kate, new parents, and when we sat down with them, actually we were blown away by how honest they were. They really worried about the struggles that they have to face as parents in this kind of like landscape of social media and increased anxiety, but as well like in their jobs. He's with the work as an air ambulance pilot. William's been to the scenes of lots of attempted and unfortunately completed suicides, and been affected by it with the death of his mum, which has been in the paper a lot. So, he wanted to talk to us because, we've been doing a lot of work for, probably 2 years now around mental health. And I joined Jonny pretty much, on his kind of like campaigning, awareness, advocacy work. I'd stepped out of being a physical trainer and started to address, what goes on in your head with people. It's so important. I don't know if you guys know the campaign that they ran this year called Heads Together. So we said, look, how can we support what you guys are doing? And they were the sponsors of this year's London Marathon. So I signed us up for a marathon. Jonny was ecstatic. But our idea was to use it as a platform to go around organisations to fundraise. So we did, we got around as many places as we could to pull the money out of people who had it and put it in the pockets of mental health charities. We work closely now with one mental health charity called MQ. Pretty much the only mental health research charity in the UK. So there needs to be more charities like this, but that's what we do now. And our two big things, one is tackling stigma and discrimination, which stops people being able to talk about it, their own problems. But I think the second message, which is just as powerful, is that 9 years ago, this amazing guy was sitting on the side of a bridge about to take his life because he felt like he was the only person going through what he was going through. Nobody else understood, and he was too ashamed and embarrassed to talk about what was going on, and to now have inspired thousands of people around the world and talk so openly and honestly about what goes on in his head. And also the second message, which is really important, that there can always be hope, and with mental health there should always be a focus on recovery. And so that's our story, and we really thank you guys for listening to that today. Thank you very much.
So I'm sure you all agree it was an amazing story. I'd like to thank you again for coming to talk to us today. It shows, I think we all need to do better. From Jonny's earliest experiences with health and health professionals, it also shows the importance, so we're here talking about research today, but actually what is as important as anything is a sense of maintaining compassion, and I think Mike is a perfect demonstration of that. But that's so important. Being able to listen and just giving people that ear is as important as the other elements that we've spoken about today. I work clinically in what's called an early intervention service, and that's for people that have developed their first episode of psychosis, and we stay in contact with them for 3 years after that time. And I think those services are informed by exactly the type of thing that was spoken about. So we don't rush to diagnose people because there's real uncertainty and individual variation in how people become psychotic initially, and we also appreciate terms like schizophrenia can be really pejorative and aren't helpful a lot of the time, particularly in those early phases of people's experiences. But the other thing is about hope. And without engendering that to people, I think we really struggled. So I think it was powerfully demonstrated why that is. So I'd like to open up the floor now for people for perhaps 10, 15 minutes to ask any questions they may have. And we've got a mic coming round for people to be able to ask questions. go ahead.
So you seem all upon resilience now, and I know that resilience can study. I'm doing a master's in mental health and recovery, and so I know that resilience can actually help to improve your mental health. So, what does resilience mean to you, and how important it is in terms of doing advocacy work?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. I guess my resilience now is kind of linked to, it's linked to hope. You know, I think unless you've got, even when I went through the relapse a couple of years ago, there was a few months when I didn't leave my room, and I was constantly suicidal, and then I was put back into hospital, and there was no hope, and I didn't feel any sort of resilience. But then I actually had, during that time, I had a really good course of CBT, and it was actually more about, like you were saying, about the person that I was working with. They were just so, I've never worked with someone that was so understanding and patient, and didn't rush, and because obviously on the NHS there's a limited amount of time that someone is given, but it didn't feel like we had to, it wasn't like, we've got to be this point by the end of the 12 sessions. I don't know, there's something about her that, anyway, that restored my faith, and that led to me being more resilient. I think there really is a link between the hope and the resilience for me. Sorry, does that answer your, hope. I think hope has a lot to do with it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for such an inspiring story, both of you. And my name is Clara. I'm one of the PhD students here, funded by the Medical Research Council, and my PhD is on cognitive mechanisms of early psychosis. Actually, James helped me a lot. And I also am really keen in the kind of public engagement and spread of knowledge into the more general kind of domain, because I wonder what your thoughts are, because some people simply do not believe that there is a biological basis for any sort of mental illness. Perhaps they had a bad experience with their medication, perhaps someone else did close to them. But I was at a Schizophrenia Commission conference in 2012, and there were people literally giving out leaflets saying there's no biological basis for mental illness. So that really shocked me. I'm just wondering what you think of the lack of knowledge either way. Either you think it's completely biological disease or completely a social construct. I don't think it's as clear-cut as either of these options. So I'm just wondering what you think of, not necessarily of people, but of the narrative that is nothing to do with the brain.
Two things.
Yeah.
Just from a general perspective, I think any debate is good. Just gets it out there. So rather than right or wrong, for years, everything's been debated, like ludicrous, like the Earth is flat. I think that's come around again on social media. Hasn't that been on Facebook? But at the time, very controversial, right? The Earth is round. What? That's why it's not about good or bad. It's about progression. You need to have these ideas that may seem ridiculous, or somebody does believe or doesn't, to have this open debate. And the more open debates, the more platforms, the more just the subject matter gets out there. And that's really, really important, to kind of not judge. Because in mental health, what we talk about a lot is why people feel comfortable to talk, and it's about not judging, not putting a label on anything. So the same should be, if you're talking about the let it happen. I respect that view, but here's my opinion, and that will get through. And one thing I heard, which was just made me just put it into context, was we were in a company and somebody said, there's people who sit on our board and they say like, I don't believe in stress, I don't believe in depression. I think people should just buck up and get on with it. And somebody put a question out like, well, what do you do in that situation? And this guy just very succinctly said, they'll die out. Those people, they're dinosaurs. They'll die out. And it's true. there's so much information sharing now. We've got, you know, the internet, you know, social media. These ideas, like these antiquated views on things, are just gonna die out, because the more we can get research and get these ideas spread, you know, you can't deny certain things, just like you can't say the earth is flat anymore. So it's not bad. That's my opinion. Is there's no good or bad. Just take it for what it is and embrace it, because then you can put your point across and you can make a change. That's yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's just more education in schools. It needs to start in schools, you know. I don't understand why, like, I talked about science before. You know, I remember my science lessons, we never once talked about, I don't know if anyone else has, why it doesn't make sense. You know, we talked about, you know, in biology, we talked about everything else, but not, right, it just doesn't make sense. And so the education system needs to change, the syllabuses, the you know, it needs to come from the top. You know, the Department of Education, I think, needs to change things, and they're so slow to respond and to actually change things. But yeah, it feels frustrating. But yeah, it needs to start in education. That's what it is. Yeah.
I completely agree with all that's been said. I think we also need to call out people with those kind of unevidence-based extremist views. And there are biological fundamentalists and there are social fundamentalists. And as in most positions, I think both of them are wrong in that respect. And it relies upon people that know what that evidence is, to interpret it and communicate it in an understandable way, I think. And that's what comes back to education. I think the earlier we can start that, the better, just as Jonny said. And it's great to hear about the school programme. I forgot to say earlier, it's also really good as a bloke to see two blokes that have advanced things in this way, because men are really crap at doing that, which I think is one of the reasons why the main, most prominent reason for death below 45 is suicide. And men aren't good at supporting each other, and they look more decent in headbands than do the royal family.
Something about that.
Yeah, where's all the other geezers gone? Because, you know, that's what we... it's so frustrating sometimes especially in a work environment or professional environment, it's always like 70-30, like the majority female, or 80-20.
I think it's quite...
I was just looking, yeah.
Oh, no. The guys, there are guys in the room, but I just think as a broad... There's like definitely like needs to get this subject matter out, so it's okay to kind of engage with it. You know, it's the whole stigma side of things. It's really hard to get an audience that even goes close to 50-50 or tips that and is more male dominated. That's why we started going into construction companies, started working with sports teams and working with like rugby league and football clubs.
And prisons.
You know, we try really hard to get into those environments, but where we always say to somebody, next time there's a mental health conference on, just grab a guy. Just grab a guy and bring him with you. Because we do. We need to, yeah.
And it was good. It was bound to be a bloke who said they should just man up and get on with it. That's what, I bet you that was a bloke in that corporate situation, wasn't it?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
So we need to hold the man's hand.
Yeah. Just grab a guy Friday, that's what we call it. Yeah.
Something else.
Something else.
That's got a different meaning in it. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you. I should think first. Don't worry. It's really about the point that you mentioned in relation to hope and the importance of that. And I think that there's something that really needs to change about the medical model in terms of, particularly in community mental health, where you're offered 6 sessions of CBT. If that doesn't fix you, you're either on your own or you've got a problem that nobody can solve. And I think that is just something that really needs to change, because that's quite damaging. I mean, it leaves you without any hope.
Yeah, and this is where I think the role of mental health charities and organisations come in. I mean, there's so many amazing mental health charities out there, both larger ones, national ones, but also the smaller ones as well. You know, there was one when I lived in Manchester post university. There was a charity there called Mood Swings, and that I got a year's worth of CBT with this charity. I mean, you know, we'd never have got that just because of the way things are on the NHS. So yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. There is a lack of hope, but not just within. I know staff sometimes as well. You know, I remember the second hospital. It was really sad. The second hospital that I was in. I mean, the staff there was so stressed. It was so overstretched, and you know, they used to do their like 15-minute checks, knock on the door, and they'd like, "You're alive," and then they'd run and run. They'd run around. They would run around, and the stress was palpable, and it was really sad. Not just for everyone. It wasn't. How was it benefiting anyone? But then the last hospital that I was in, you know, it was. I don't know. There was something different about it, you know, because the staff in the second hospital it was much more less regular staff, and the third hospital was regular all the time, regular staff. And they I don't know, they weren't stressed and they weren't overstretched, and they took time, and that made a difference to their mental health, and it made a difference to patients as well. I think, you know, you've got to think about staffs, the nurses, the clinicians, their mental health, and people don't. I mean, everyone needs to have hope.
Yeah, and that's a complete reflection of my experience as well. I mean, if you've got, as a community psychiatric nurse, 40 or 60 patients that you're meant to be looking after, then you're not afforded the time to do the kind of stuff that we've heard about tonight. And so it's coming back to what we spoke about originally, giving priority to mental health and what we think are important problems. That's the fundamental thing that's wrong. I'm also a bit reluctant to blame the medical model, particularly for a psychological situation, the scenario that you gave. I don't know what the medical model means, but it's blamed for a lot of the wrongs within mental health, and I'm not sure that's the case, particularly as I've asked a lot of people what they think the medical model is, and I don't know what the definition of that is, but to me it avoids the problem to label it as something wrong with the medical model. What's wrong is the lack of resource to be able to deliver those treatments sufficiently well to support people in the ways we've heard about, I think. And I think it's a complete sideshow to say that it's the fault of the medical model. There are different approaches that need to be taken, but I don't think mental health relies upon the medical model in the NHS largely. It's more, there are more fundamental problems that present difficulty like that.
Can I just say, so if I did on the aspect of hope, and you mentioned about local charities, I just want to say thank you to Orion, who runs a wonderful local charity, and who gives hope to many mental health sufferers.
Amazing.
Such as myself. So I just thought it was important to highlight that point, because it's most definitely the local charities who make such a difference to people.
What's the charity?
It's a charity called Walk Free.
Walk Free, and are they based in Cardiff?
Yes, based in Cardiff,
Fantastic.
and run by Orion.
Oh, fantastic.
And they're a brilliant charity that the NHS rely on a lot. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Hi, first, it's just going back when we talk about education. I'm a primary teacher here in Cardiff, and the education in Wales is different to in England. It's evolved, and we've got a new curriculum coming out in the next couple of years, which is about Professor Donaldson, who also did one in Scotland. And one of the things that we have started to address is mental health within that. And to the extent that within our school, we have a school improvement plan that we have to do 3, 4, 5 targets each year, and next year one of them's mindfulness. And I think it's been a really positive thing that certainly Wales is being much more progressive. As someone who taught in England for 10 years and it's recently sort of come, but I think the English system, how they deal with that within the primary education sector, could learn a lot from that. I think probably one of the problems is people don't feel comfortable talking about things. We have great movements forward when something happens, whether that's Stephen Fry's programme, whether that's the death of someone like Robin Williams, and obviously Prince Harry coming out, explaining his problems seemed to be quite a big thing. But my question is, within all of this really positive stuff, there's still quite damaging things on social media. Piers Morgan, the way the media is treated, Paul Gascoigne, Frank Bruno, obviously the newspaper headlines of Marcus Bruno locked up. And we had Piers Morgan the other week, who is a man of great influence still, a lot of people, unfortunately, and he was talking about real men. He was talking about we need to, real men need to just get on with it. And the best bit was where he said, is James Bond not a real man then?
What does he say?
Is James Bond not a real man?
Yeah.
Would that say, no. It's fictional. But just do you feel that still takes us back? Or do you feel that they don't have the influence that maybe we feared they might do?
It's funny actually, because I had an argument with Piers Morgan on the subject of schizophrenia, because I don't know, just a quick story. I don't know if you remember a few years ago when Nelson Mandela passed away and they had his funeral, big funeral. There was someone doing sign language, I don't know if people remember, and he was doing the wrong sign language. And it was later revealed that he was having an episode of psychosis. And, he wasn't very well, so he was doing the wrong sign language. And Piers Morgan wrote all this stuff, why is someone with schizophrenia standing so close to all the world leaders? And I went back and I was like, what do you mean? Why is, and he was like, well, the violence, and obviously I went back and all this, and we had this massive Twitter argument. But there's no winning with Piers Morgan. It's ridiculous. It didn't matter what I said, he'd turn it around. But the thing is, I in a more positive way, I do feel, because I looked at the responses to those comments, and he made comments about Will Young recently revealed, he was on Strictly Come Dancing. I don't know if people watched it last year. He was on Strictly Come Dancing. He had to leave because he had PTSD. He was struggling. And Piers Morgan wrote this thing about, it's post-traumatic celebrity disorder now. Everyone's got PTSD and all this stuff. And when you read the comments underneath, and I'd say 90% of people are actually kind of arguing back at him and saying, this is ridiculous, Piers. Come on, stop being. So, which is positive, and people like Katie Hopkins as well. She. Okay, maybe. No, there's people do. I do see the and like Neil said about the whole kind of people sort of dying out. It's which is positive in a way, in the sense of those people, those views will. On a different note, social media is something that we do need to focus on in terms of education, because we go into schools and we don't realise the impact that social media is having on young people. Don't think, huge. Things like cyberbullying, but even things like I was talking to a group of young people recently, and they were saying things like on Instagram, why don't I have people? I don't have enough likes, or why do they not like my picture? And it leads to self-harm, and they feel so anxious, and they feel really down about it, and we don't realise the impact that social media is having on young people's mental health, and we need to address it. Young people say to me, we keep being told just put it away, just stop doing it, but we can't. It's not that easy. So we need to listen to them and actually take on board what's going on for them. So you obviously fully aware of that, but yeah, that's positive about the education. That's positive.
Just a bit of a personal question. When you're delivering this and you're telling your story, I come from a domestic abuse background, and we're always told to not ask the victims to relive it because it traumatises them.
Yeah.
How does that affect you, and what advice would you give for working with people who are going through a recovery, who want to share this story, and how to kind of keep themselves well and look after their well-being?
Well, I think I'm really lucky because I'm not obviously doing it on my own. I think, I have done these things on my own, and it's hard. Yeah, I think it's so important to have someone there you can, before, even during, to connect with, and the post. You need someone there to talk to. I think it's so hard reliving it and doing it on your own, especially front of so many people is tough. But I think, you know, it's baby steps for me. It was baby steps, you know, starting off just on my own video blogs, you know, under a different name, just to kind of see. And then that got a good response. So then I, you know, went on and did more and more. But I have to say that I was really helped by a lot of mental health charities along the way. Time to Change, I don't know if you've heard of Time to Change, was one of them. And Time to Change actually gave me sort of training on how to, you know, deliver my story. And it helped as well to meet with other people that also wanted to share their story and connect. And yeah, we know kind of a few people in this circuit, and it's really important, again, to keep connecting with them and seeing, you know, how's it going for you. And you know, if it is too much, then saying to people, you know, why don't you take a step back? Take a step back. It's fine. You know, you need to look after your mental health, prioritise. I think, yeah, that's the most important thing for me, is having the support, a network around you when you're delivering something like this.
Yeah, I just think on like something around the accountability of the people around you who know what's going on. So I've got the easy job, right? I'm just talking about having a chat on a bridge, not reliving anything. And even, you know, having a conversation about mental health day in, day out, I find I have to download things, and I'm lucky, I've got my wife, I can go home, speak to her, she knows so much about what we do. But I know that when Jonny goes home, sometimes he might be, you know, nobody to talk to, so I know that he's got his therapy going on, or if he's going out with friends, like I want to know, like, where are you going tonight, what are you doing, who are you speaking to, how's your mum, how's your dad, are you speaking to them, you know, so the people around you, you know, having a conversation saying that, you know, can you kind of hold me accountable for looking after myself, you know, so I know that if he's not having his therapy, or if he's not been going out and seeing his friends much, like I would step in and talk about what we're doing. So yeah, it's as much about the people around as the person who's doing it as well.
I think you underplay your role a little bit.
I've had a lot of experience of people saying diagnoses like depression and stuff are handed out very easily, and antidepressants and things like that. And I just wondered your thoughts on that, and things like you doing it for attention and things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's such a mix. I've had so many different stories of responses from GPs. But yeah, GPs are really the gateway, aren't they, to all the services? There's so many different responses. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult one. I personally think, you know, there should be. I really like the system in Australia. They have something called Headspace, which is where you know, if a young person might need some help, is struggling, they've got these Headspace kind of centres where people can go, and it's like a community centre, rather than having to go to the GP and having a 10-minute appointment where it's like ticking the boxes, you know, depression. Oh, you're on this level. It's more about chat, you know, and they go and someone will go to the centre and meet a young person that might want to talk, and it's more about having that chat and that dialogue rather than just that 10-minute appointment that determines so much. I really like that system, because yeah, I mean, I speak to a lot of young people, and they do say it's a phase, or it's part of growing up, and they feel dismissed, they feel like they haven't been listened to, and that can sometimes put them off then going back and seeking help if they need it. I mean, for some people, yes, it is just kind of be a phase, and it might just be a temporary thing. For some people, you know, they need more help and support, and they're just kind of like, or it's the medication thing. And again, speak to a lot of people, not just young people, but a lot of people that are given the meds and they do not want to take them, and they don't take them, and it's like, that's another thing as well. There's a really good website actually called Head Meds. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was done by the charity Young Minds, and gives such a great comprehensive list of the medications and what they do, and first-hand testimonials. I really like that website because, you know, it directs people. Too often it's just like that 10-minute appointment. It's just like, here you go, bye. People need, you know, places to go. The other thing to mention just quickly is a really good resource called Doc Ready, and it is designed by young people who have lived experience, and basically, you know, you go to your doctor and it's really hard to talk, so you write everything down in this kind of form and you can give it to your doctor rather than having to explain everything. And I like that, I really like that.
And I think one point, so building on the headspace model, there's another advantage of being in a small country where the government is a bit closer to third sector organisations, I think, is that within the Welsh mental health strategy, then youth services and along those kind of models are something that are more prominent than they are elsewhere. And that's where mental health might sit alongside sexual health, substance misuse, and so, you know, for somebody between the ages of 16 and 30, probably, well, actually any age, to come along to the community mental health team, they're not designed as welcoming places typically. So again, we need to do better. And I think one way of doing that is to look at a youth-based service. Now, it's difficult to implement those models because it means disentangling existing services, but it's certainly one that would get around some of the limitations that we've learned.
Hello, I'm a clinical psychologist. That sounds a bit like an Alcoholic Anonymous. I don't want to talk about clinical psychology. I saw you in Bristol at the Old Vic. There was a play. I think the play was called Stranger on a Bridge.
Yeah.
It was done by a Bristol company, I think.
That's right,
You mentioned One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it scared the crap out of me as well.
Okay.
And I think I carried that message, a very bad message, I think, about mental health and the way it's treated for decades with me. And they've also, but what I was impressed with your play was what a positive message it gave about mental health, and a realistic one as well. It wasn't just simply glossing over the issues or particularly having a happy ending, but it was a very powerful medium. And we mentioned education, we mentioned social media, we mentioned talks like this. What do you think is the role of performing arts and the arts in carrying the message forwards?
Massive role. I mean, I think there's definitely a link, creativity. I mean, when we go and visit, psychiatric units or community centres, there's a link. The art is just the most amazing art. The most amazing art that's created, particularly by people that have psychosis. I don't know if that's something you relate to. The most incredible art. And, so in Bath, there's something called the Fresh Arts Project. And basically what they did was people on the wards, created these paintings. And there was one guy, amazing artist, and he created this painting. And it was then shown at the Holborn Museum in Bath. And it changed his life because he didn't have any confidence before. And he had his painting exhibited in this, and it's changed his life now. Now he's a professional artist and he's doing so well. He's to see that transformation, I really, I just think there needs to be more of an appreciation for creativity within people that have mental health issues and more of a chance for them to shine because there is a definite link. And I think, performing arts, it can be another route in. It can be another route in for people. Something that we're seeing more of, which is good, is comedy related to mental health, which is, it's a great way. It's a great accessible way for people to get in. People like Ruby Wax, she's done a couple of stand-up tours now talking about her mental health, and I think that's great. There's a few others. There's I've forgotten the names.
I can't help, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, but no, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a way in. It's another way in for sure. Yeah.
What happened to the play?
It's a good question. We're trying to we're trying to get some money to put it on. But we don't want it just to go into. We want it to go into schools and prisons as well. So we're trying to get some money for it. Yeah.
I think weren't you dressed as a polar bear as well?
Huh?
Weren't you dressed as a polar bear? No? I didn't see it.
The voice was represented as a panda, which
I
don't know why they chose a
that
panda.
makes sense, right?
But I don't know. It was very strange watching it, obviously. But it was a really good way in, I thought. Yeah.
I would like to ask, from your experience of working with professionals, I noted from earlier on in your story about the letter with the various professionals that were at the meeting, like psychiatrists and social worker. What things did you find helpful from their input, and what things didn't you find helpful? So, so for example, would be the way a professional interacted with you. What things did you find useful? What did you think that you didn't find useful?
Well, I think for me over the years, the thing that I found most useful is, again, it seems quite simple, but having a dialogue rather than, I'm with a psychiatrist now that we talk rather than previous psychiatrists. It's been very much like, you've got this diagnosis, you need to take these meds, it needs to be this dose, because everyone wants to be on the highest dose of the antipsychotic, olanzapine. And if I'm on the 20 milligrams, I find it difficult to function. I get really tired, and the weight gain and all the different side effects that come with medication. And so many times I've had people that just, they won't, there's no negotiation, or they won't. And I understand it's difficult, but the psychiatrist I'm with now is very much like, look, I understand, you want to be functioning, and you want to, you don't want to be on the highest dose, and so we'll work towards that. And I really like that dialogue. She listens with her, because we've had that open dialogue, and she's very open and honest with me from day one, and she listens. I've been able to be more open with her. I think that makes a difference.
And it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I mean, if you're not listening to somebody and telling them they need to be on the highest dose of meds, they're going to either tell you to bugger off, or they're not going to take their meds. And we know that a lot of people don't take their meds for that very reason. A lot of my time is spent trying to decrease doses, actually. Yeah. And we've got good evidence for this, that people get put onto too high doses of antipsychotics too quickly. And that, again, is because of the pressures, particularly on inpatient services. So doses are ramped up, and it's far harder to decrease antipsychotic doses, because you don't know where the risk lies of that than it is to increase them. And so we need to be far more careful with that. And I don't defend that in any way. It's completely wrong that that happens. The other frequent conversations I have are about people stopping medication. And I want to stop medication. If I'd been ill once, I wouldn't want to take an antipsychotic for the rest of my life. But we know so little about how safely to do that, and who may or may not be able to do that. And that's one area of research that I think we really need to prioritise in that sense. And again, it's not biological, it's completely that biopsychosocial approach, which I think is going to pay dividends. Yeah. So we were going to have a break, but we've actually just gone right the way through. Everyone's okay with that. Are there any other pressing questions? I think Neil and Jonny are going to hang around for a drink afterwards, and I'm sure would be willing to chat to people during that time. So perhaps we can have one last question, and then we'll adjourn for drinks.
Hi, I'm a mental health nurse. I recently left inpatient services because I found that it's the least conducive place to recovery. How different do you think your journey may have been if recovery was a concept that was talked about from your admission chat with your nurses, or your first aid, rather than waiting weeks for this event to happen and then things started to improve for you?
No, it's a really good point. Yeah, I think yeah, for sure. I just think we went to where was it? Grimsby. I don't know, a year, 2 years ago. We went to an inpatient unit there, and there was something different about it. You could just, as soon as you walked in, it was different. So the patients, they were involved with everything. So they were involved with designing the menus for the week, and they even cooked the food with the staff. It was great, and they had the walls were different. They had colours on the walls, and they had inspirational quotes. And you could just tell there was that emphasis on recovery, and it was so conducive to their recovery and how they felt, and it was just a different sense, It really does make a difference. It really does make a difference, I think. Just that word, even, it just, first few times I was in hospital, it just was rarely used. Didn't talk about getting better or what was, it was just about kind of, so much focus on medication and you've got to do it this way and this is the only way. And yeah, it just such a little emphasis on recovery, and as I said, going to that hospital in Grimsby really just opened my eyes to the possibilities and the potentials, of what could be if, we had a different way of looking at things, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so can I thank you all for coming? Thanks to Paul Gauci and the comms team for organising this event, to Helen Richards and others who've also contributed. Just a quick plug. Get involved if you can in the research that's going on in Cardiff. We've got something called the National Centre for Mental Health, which is a Welsh Government funded organisation to try and link mental health research between academic centres, with the NHS, and crucially with third sectors and the public. So if you're part of the third sector or charity organisation, there's a stall outside. We're really interested, and actually the strategy for that centre is informed by those organisations. So please get involved. If you're a member of the public, then you can get involved as well. We're keen to recruit people, whether they've had mental health problems or not, and actually to recruit people without a history of mental health problems is really important and really difficult to do. So I'd really encourage you to get involved in that sense as well. That's me done. Finally, I'd just like to thank Jonny and Neil for what I think was an amazing story and for their continued work. So thanks very much.